Welcome to Hobie on YouTube. I hope everybody's doing well. So I recently acquired a few official Boy Scout of America early junior size scout knives, and I haven't done individual videos on those because each one of them is very similar to a knife I've already had on the channel. So I thought I would show them all at once. And I thought one really cohesive way of doing that would be to show them in the context of talking about the origins of the junior scout knife. Where did it come from? Who was first to make a junior scout knife? And by junior scout knife, what I mean is a four-bladed equal end utility knife that is less than full size. Full size being either 3 5/8 like most of them, or 3 3/4 like some of them, but something smaller than that. A lot of American knife companies have made junior size scout knives through the years. Two that come to mind that have made knives more recently would be Queen through their Shatton Morgan line, and Case with their model 640045R. But Queen's out of business, and Case hasn't made that knife for a number of years, so we've got to keep going back. So going back, the next I can think of would be Imperial. They made a 5-blade deluxe official Boy Scout of America knife. Now this is 5 blades, not 4, I know, but it's 3.5-inch knife, and so I think it kind of qualifies. If you go back a little further than that, we can think of Cub Scout knives, and Camillus started making Cub Scout knives back in 1946. Now they are 3-bladed, not 4-bladed as well, so again we're kind of bending the rules here. But they're 3 3/8, so the size certainly is right. This is one of the new knives that I got, and while I've already featured a very early Cub Scout knife on the channel, this one is notable because the other one was an Imperial. Imperial started making Cub Scout knives in 1949. Camillus beat him to the punch in 1946, and all the very earliest ones had black plastic handles like this with raised metal shields. This one is just in such great condition, I wanted to show it off a little bit. And these are really cool knives, by the way. Like I said, they are 3-bladed. It's got a nice half stop. Here's the tank stamp. It's Camillus' 3-line tank stamp. But the blade on this example is nice and full, not too badly stained or pitted, and the action on this knife is just wonderful and springy. Because these are 3-bladed, there is room in there to put in a liner lock that locks both the screwdriver cap lifter, and this lock works great on this model. And you can see here it says press on the kind of coin release here. And then there's a punch, which also locks. So just great little knives. I would have loved to have had one of these as a kid. I would carry this now, but it's in such a nice shape. I want to keep it that way for posterity's sake. So we'll put that one down here on the table so we have something to look at. So we're back to like 1946. I think we can keep going further back. And when you think of Utica making official Girl Scout of America knives, they made a 3 3/8-inch junior size scout knife all the way back to 1933. And 1933 is also the year Cattaraugus came out with their Whittlecraft scout knife. Now this is an official Boy Scout of America knife, and it's a little bit of an odd size. This one is 3 7/16. But it's a really interesting knife with a locking screwdriver cap lifter can opener combination. And also a very interesting small coping blade. Instead of a punch, it's more of a wood carving gouging tool, and then a very small kind of stubby main blade for whittling. So that's Cattaraugus' kind of junior scout knife, came out in 1933. We can keep going back with Landers, Frary, and Clark. I don't have an example of their junior size scout knife, but it was just a downsized version of their full size. And their full size was 3 3/4. And so they made a smaller 3 3/8 inch junior size. and they started that back in 1931. And go back a little further, New York Knife Company, with their second generation of official Boy Scout knives, introduced a junior size at 3 3/8, and here's an example. I've actually featured this knife on the channel before, but I do have something new there. I was able to get the full-size version of that knife, and I'll show it to you here because I think this is one of the most interesting Boy Scout knives that was ever made. It's very, very different. First of all, it has a clip point blade, which is really unusual. Most of them are spear point. It's got the Hammer brand tang stamp here, if we can get that in focus. On the back, it's going to say BS1 official, and the junior is BS4 official, by the way. But what's really interesting about it is the screwdriver does not have a cap lifter. Instead, it has a couple of wire cable scrapers. Here's the New York Knife Company Walden tang stamp. The cap lifter is integrated with the can opener, so you've got a dual use tool here, and these tools on the back have half stops. And then finally you have the Harrison punch, which was a patented punch. Some of them will have a patent number here on the front. My examples do not for some reason, but the Harrison punch has this interesting spiral on it. And I really don't know that that did anything to help you bore a hole or punch a hole, but it does look cool. And again, we got a half stop on that tool. So those are really cool. They've got this oval, be prepared shield, lined bolsters, detachable bails, and there's really no difference between the large size and the small other than the size of the frame and the tools. So that gets us all the way back to 1926, but we could go back even further than that because we know that in 1923, when both Remington and Ulster entered the official Boy Scout of America knife market, they immediately made junior size Scout knives in addition to their full size ones. And here is a junior size 3 3/8 inch model with that early acorn shield. Remington had 3 shields, acorn, then a cutout, fleur-de-lis, and then a round shield. The acorns were first, and I can compare this against a full-size one that I have. Remington's full-size knives were just like Landers, Ferrier, and Clark. They were 3 3/4, so there's an appreciable size difference there. And you can see that the shield has to be smaller to fit the knife, but both of them have lined bolsters. One interesting thing to note is that the junior size Remington Scout knives are going to have pinched bolsters. They also have nickel silver liners as opposed to brass, and they both have that coined edge center divider there. But I want to run through this knife real quick too, because this is a new addition, and I feel fortunate to get this. For some reason, the junior size seemed a little harder to get than the full size sometimes. So here's the short stubby screwdriver cap lifter that the earlier Remington Scout knives had. This one does have the 2-piece can opener, so it would date after 1924, and it also has a Remington stamped in it. This knife has really good snap. Here's the punch. Might be just a little tip there. And then finally the main blade. Now these Remington Junior Scouts had a much narrower blade, and it did have a long nail pull. They all had long nail pulls with pronounced wedges here on the top. And this one will probably have the Remington UMC in a circle tag stamp with made in USA outside. So we know that Remington started making these at least as early as 1923, and so did Ulster. I do not have a 3 3/8 inch version of Ulster's knife, but it was just a downsized version of this knife. This knife is the model 1502, and the smaller one is model 1503. By the way, the small Remington is model RS 4233. But yeah, it was just like this very first Ulster. It had the long nail pull. It had again, a one-piece can opener, not the three-piece that Ulster later moved to. And it had a much shorter, stubbier screwdriver than Ulster's next generation. I also think it's safe to say that Remington was making Scout-type knives before 1923, when they introduced the official Boy Scout of America knives. I used to have a red, white, and blue Junior Scout knife with a one-piece can opener in the very earliest tang stamp, and those could date as early, I think, as 1921. So we got back to 1921 with Remington. Can we go back any further on the Junior Scout knife? Well, in doing research for this video, I came across the very first Campfire Girls knife, made by New York Knife Company as early as 1915. It's a four-bladed utility knife, but the problem I was having with it is that my two Scout reference books were giving two different sizes for it. What piqued my interest in it originally was finding it in Joseph Richard Kerr's 600 Scout Knives book, and he gives a size of 3 3/8, junior size, and a date as early as 1914. He includes an ad, very early New York Knife Company official Boy Scout knife ad, which shows their very first Boy Scout knife here. By the way, it's a little bit inaccurate. I've seen this a couple times in their old ads where they put the bail on the front end, and it was never produced that way. It was always here in the back. But anyway, it's up against the Campfire Girls knife. And at least from the way this ad appears, there does seem to be a size difference there. So that got me excited. The only problem was my other reference book that I rely on quite a bit, which is an excellent book called Official Scout Blades by Ed Holbrook, pictures the same knife, Campfire Girls knife from New York Knife Company, but he gives the size as 3 5/8 inches. So this is a mystery to me because I do not own this knife. So I reached out to a friend and fellow collector, Neil Punchard, and Neil is not only a knife expert, but he's also an accomplished author writing of knives, and he's one of the co-authors of the Boker Book. If you don't have that and you collect or like Bokers, I highly recommend you get a copy. I'll put a link in the description box in the video, and it's very reasonable and it's an excellent book. But I reached out to Neil and I said, hey, can you help me with this? This is what I think's going on, but I'm not sure. Neil has an extensive collection of early catalogs. He went through them all. He came back and he said, the very earliest image of a junior size Scout knife I could find was indeed a New York Knife Company Campfire Girls knife with the Wohelo badge from a 1916 New York Knife Company factory catalog. And so here's that image. But it gives the size as 3 1/4. So here we got a third size. We're going to go with 3 1/4, obviously, because this is from New York Knife Company's own factory catalog. And I'm going to go with the New York Knife Company with the very first Campfire Girls knife in 1915, 1916 as being the beginning of the junior size Scout knife. I'll close with saying that this is all based on my own personal observations, my collection, my reference materials, and some help from a friend. So if you have any other ideas on this or other information, I'm open to that. Please share. Leave anything you'd like about the origins of the Junior Scout knife in the comments. And hey, as always, thanks for watching and have fun collecting.